This is Library Nerds with Words, the podcast that gives you the word on all the cool, nerdy happenings at Peter White Public Library and the library universe beyond. From books and concerts to search engines and story times, the library nerds are in and ready to show you that being a nerd can be cool. Get ready, get set, get nerdy. Welcome back to Library Nerds with Words, the podcast that gives you the word on all the cool things happening at Peter White Public Library and the library universe beyond from the people who know it best, library nerds. I'm Marty Achatz, Adult Programming Coordinator for Peter White Public Library today, and joining me in Nerd Campaign Headquarters is Communications Coordinator for PWPL, Andrea Marsh. Welcome back to the podcast, Andrea.
Thanks for having me.
She's a little out of breath. She just ran up from downstairs. So I'm always excited to be able to sit down and talk nerd with you, Andrea. It has been quite a packed summer for summer reading, concerts on the steps, and Spielberg movies. And of course, it's your job to make all the people know about what's happening at PWPL and communicate as being the communications coordinator. Of course, there's been some rainy concert days, and we've had to move things inside, but for the most part, this summer has been one for the record books. Yes, that is a clue as to what Andrea and I are going to be talking about today. But before we can talk about our topic, another terrible hint about today's subject, we have to play another round of Word on the Nerd. You know how this goes. I'm going to ask you 3 library nerd questions about yourself, and you have to answer them for listeners. So, Andrea, are you ready to play
Word on the Nerd?
Andrea, this is going to be a little game of Would You Rather. I'm going to give you 3 Would You Rather questions, and you have to truthfully answer them. And today, all of your questions have to do with reading and books.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So here's your first question. If you were stuck on a desert island for 20 years and could only have one book to read, would you rather have a book by Ann Patchett?
Oh.
Or would you rather have a book by Bonnie Jo Campbell?
Oh, man. Both authors have an amazing talent.
Yes.
Of making these amazing worlds that you are just stuck in. And I'm not saying stuck in a bad way. Mm-hmm. Stuck is very, very appropriate for this. I don't want to leave. So I only read one Bonnie Jo Campbell book, and that was The Waters.
Right.
We really pushed it this summer because she was here. Her as a person, I had the pleasure of going on air with her and just listening to her talk about her book, talk about her life.
So good.
Oh, and like... She was excellent, and the way she speaks is the way she writes. And I'm sure that's common for all authors, but
pretty much, I'd say.
I'm new to this game. So that was really lovely to witness. But Ann Patchett, that girl. Tom Lake, the setting there, I still find myself in the hills of northern Michigan on a cherry farm during a pandemic.
And you've listened to another one of her books, too.
Yeah, you recommended it.
Yes.
The Dutch House. Mm-hmm. I am in the Dutch House. I am with my siblings, Maeve and Daniel. Tom Hanks is the narrator, so that really does help.
Well, you had Meryl Streep on Tom Lake, though.
Those are hard ones to beat. So I'm going to go with Ann Patchett.
Okay, you're going with Ann Patchett. I would... just because she's a really good friend of mine for a long, long time, I'm going to go with Bonnie Jo Campbell's
That's
books.
okay. You can be biased.
Okay. Okay. As you know, the questions might get a little harder from here on out, so here's your second question. Would you rather have dinner with the characters from Kristen Hanna's The Women, or would you rather have dinner with the character Molly the Maid from Nita Prose's The Maid or The Mystery Guest?
Whoa, these are good questions. And books I actually read, so thank you. I'm going to go with The Women. I think you could only say so much to Molly the Maid.
She's very literal.
She has a set course on how she is going to think, and it's hard for her to divert from that.
But if you were having dinner with Molly, you'd be at Olive Garden because that's practically the only place that she goes out to
You know
eat.
That unlimited bread and breadsticks, salad and breadsticks, sign me up!
I think that I would go with the women, too, just because those characters still are with me after reading that book.
Same here. I can't stop talking about it.
Yeah, so.
Or thinking about it. Also, the conversations you're going to have, huge eye-opening experiences. Probably jaw on the floor because you cannot believe what these characters had to endure and still endure to this day.
Yes.
So yeah, those would be some pretty juicy, not like fun juicy, more like bitter juicy conversations to have.
Really interesting.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so here's your last question. Would you rather have the octopus from Shelby Van Pelt's Remarkably Bright Creatures as a pet? Or would you rather have the bear from Andrew Kravach's The Bear as a pet?
Before I answer that question, I would like to make a statement.
Yes.
The Bear, Andrew Kravach, did I say that correctly? Underrated. We don't talk about this book enough.
I love that book.
It's a sweet little read. If you haven't picked it up, do yourself a favor. It's a great read. Marcellus the octopus from Remarkably Bright Creatures. Thank you. My brain's a little... Marcellus would escape. He would not want to be with me. He'd be like, this woman has no routine. She's never here. She eats over her kitchen sink. Like, I'm more sophisticated than this individual. The bear would be pretty cool because I get cold at night and they have a lot of fur. They love to sleep.
And they bring you food, too.
They love berries. I love berries.
So
I think I am a bear. So I don't want to pick up poo because that would be a handful.
Yes.
But I'm going to go with the bear.
I think I would go with the bear, too, just because I like the idea of having a bear as a pet.
Yeah.
Whereas an octopus, there's lots of other things, saltwater tanks and all that stuff.
I would feel guilty because they would be confined to a tank.
They would be so bored.
The bear, you can open up the door and be like,
go ahead.
See ya!
See you later. All right, so it's the bear. Wow, we agreed on every single answer this time. So.
Oh, no, not the first one.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Okay, well, that's because I have a relationship.
Marty
with
has
Bonnie
a
Jo.
thing.
I was going to say a thing, but that doesn't sound right.
Not that kind of thing.
No, not that kind of thing. All right. Well, we have come to the end of this bookie edition of Word on the Nerd, this time with Andrea Marsh, Communications Coordinator for Peter White Public Library. And now the time has come, Andrea. Can we talk about what is on your mind? Yes, that is another clue as to today's subject. So why don't you share with us the word. So what is on your mind today, Andrea? What's going on?
Woo! I'm excited to report that our book club, All Booked Up.
Yes.
As we know, readers and viewers and listeners and whomever is listening to this in the void, we have only been doing our book discussions on air without, with limited interaction with our patrons.
I mean, we've had it at the library a couple times where there was people in the audience, but still those people didn't really interact that much.
So, Marty, we are changing that. We are bringing back
in-person discussions.
They're going to happen the Tuesday before the live recording. That date sometimes fluctuates, but it's always on... Like during the last week.
It's the last week, and it's always on a Tuesday. That's always, what we're shooting for.
Tuesdays.
And I think we're shooting for, what, like 1 to 2 or something?
I think it was noon.
Noon, okay.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yes.
You will read that information in the show notes.
But you're going to see two things on the library calendar. One is going to say, all booked up, and it's Can We Talk?
Guess what?
And then we're going to talk about the book.
That's the one we're talking about.
That's right. And you get to have the pleasure or pain of having Andrea and myself there.
Or even worse, the both of us.
The both of us talking about these books, which we love. We love doing that. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then the following day... maybe we can get questions from people that we can bring on air the following day and talk with Tia and Elizabeth.
And that's the ultimate goal because it takes a long time for a book group to really gain momentum and have an increased level of participation, which all librarians want. And we're getting there.
Yes.
So we're hoping that this is going to help bridge the gap between all of the viewers that we get watching All Booked Up on Upper Michigan Today. it's broadcast across the UP.
Right, yeah.
Which is more than the PWPL service area, which is amazing. However, we want to know how you're feeling about this narrative you're reading. How are you relating to the characters? How you're applying your life woes into the story, and how the story is then giving you guidance about your life woes.
Yeah.
I hate to repeat that word again, but it's one of those days.
Yeah, it's one of those days. And I think I've missed having those kinds of conversations with people about these books that both Andrew and I pretty much love every single one of these books that we've read. Some of them not as much as others, but still very good.
And
So.
And there's nothing like being in person with somebody and being like, can we please talk about that one scene in Tom Link where Laura goes to the mental institution? Like, there's some things that we can't really discuss on air.
Yeah.
And like, those are the juicy, dirty deets that I want to know what's going on in our readers'
So what you're saying
heads.
is, if you want to talk dirty about books with us,
I'm not saying I'm a perv. I'm just saying there is some explicit context that needs to be talked out.
That are important plot elements.
For character development.
Right.
And I feel like being on air, we're really limited on how deep we can go into the narrative, because we only have 30 seconds to talk.
Yeah, I mean, we only have a few minutes usually, and we're talking about other things, and other things are going on, and of course Andrea and I have to beat Tia and Elizabeth at a game.
Which, we always do beat them. But also, this is one thing that I learned on air, is that when you're on air, it's like you have to be aggressive with your thoughts, because you have to speak before anybody else makes a comment. Unless on the rare occasion when they're like, Andrea, how many tears did you shed during this book?
Andrea, is this American sexy or English sexy? That kind of thing.
British sexy. The women is not British sexy. There's limited sexy.
There's a little sexy in it, but not.
It is definitely British sexy. So you're not going to have explicit overload of what our characters are doing. But yeah, there is a love scene.
But we have some good books coming up that might have more British sexy stuff.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, let me just grab a sheet. I'm going to tell you when our first All Booked Up Can We Talk is. Just a second. So our first All Booked Up Can We Talk is going to be on Tuesday, September 24th. From 12 to 1 p.m. in the Shirus room.
Oh, the Shirus room, which is a gorgeous room.
It's a gorgeous room, and we'll have fun. And if you want to bring snacks or lunch or something like that,
please,
that's fine, because Andrea and I will probably be eating too.
Yep.
So.
Yes, I will be bringing a snack and talking about the books we're reading. Currently, right now, I haven't started the next month, so this is September.
We haven't revealed it.
No,
but this is. We'll do it.
We'll do it. Marty, would you like to reveal the All Booked Up book group?
So we're reading The Women by Kristen Hanna for August, and for September we are returning to Nita Prose and a character that we all fell in love with in the book The Maid. Where it was a mystery that she was trying to solve. A very interesting character named Molly, who has very quirky traits, we say. Mm-hmm. And she returns again to solve another murder that happens in this hotel. By the way, don't stay at this hotel because people seem to die. But this one is called The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose. And it's a maid novel. I guess she's going to come out with a whole series of these, but Molly the Maid is in that. And have you listened to it yet?
No, not yet.
I can't tell you who did it.
No, please don't. We don't want that spoiler alert. But The Maid, if you haven't read that one, go back in our archives. Yes. You can place a hold at www.pwpl.info. Under our book groups tab, we have not only... the ease,
the current ones,
too. And then we have the ease of you placing a hold on our upcoming All Booked Up books. But you can also go back and review the list of previous reads and then you get to place your hold on those. So those ones are not lost in the ether. We really want our library patrons and users to go back to our selections because we have some all-star books.
Yeah, and we have several copies of those older
Yeah.
books too. So it's not like there's only one copy to get. And usually when we pick a book for a book club for a month, Amy, our wonderful adult services, yeah, we love Amy. She orders several copies of that book for people to get. And you can also, if you want to go out and buy the book because you love the author so much, you can go to Snowbound. Of course, we love Dana at Snowbound.
We also have our digital apps. Our Libby,
digital
you can
apps.
put holds on Libby for ebooks or audiobooks. You can also jump over to Hoopla, another library digital app, to do the same for ebooks and audiobooks. You still do have to place a hold, and chances are there is a hold list, but put your name on it.
Yeah, put your name on it. Usually those books get read very fast and returned very quickly.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, there you go. A new addition to our All Booked Up events. And that's going to be starting in September. So make sure you check out pwpl.info to look and make sure you have that on your calendar. So that's the word from Andrea Marsh, Communications Coordinator here about All Booked Up. But I can't let you leave the Book Nerd Clubhouse just yet,
I love the
Andrea.
Clubhouse.
First, we have to find out what you've been reading that's been distracting you recently. It's a little segment on the podcast we call Off the Shelf. Off the Shelf. And we have come to the end of this week's All Booked Up episode of Library Nerds with Words. I want to thank Andrea Marsh, Communications Coordinator here at Peter White Public Library, for stopping by the Nerd Central Intelligence Agency today.
Womp womp.
Come back next week when I promise I will be sitting down with Addison Geidebeck. It didn't happen this week, but next week we will.
week.
One of the newest additions to the circulation department at PWPL. And let me give a shout out to Melissa, who is back on.
Welcome back, Melissa.
But until that time, everyone, stay nerdy.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to Library Nerds with Words, Peter White Public Library's weekly podcast, giving you the word on what's cool at the library. The theme for the podcast is Happy Clappy by John Bartman, used courtesy of Pixabay. This episode was written and produced by Martin Acketts and sponsored by Peter White Public Library. Until next week, pick up a good book, listen to some good music, watch a good movie, attend a great event, and remember, library nerds are the coolest people around.